5:30 a.m., the 29th of September 1864, New Market Heights, Virginia. Dawn breaks over the swamp. 3,000 black soldiers stand in formation, staring up at the Confederate fortifications on the ridge above them. The Texas Brigade waits behind those walls. Veterans, killers, men who have sworn to show no mercy to black troops. The order comes down the line. No firing, no stopping, just charge. General Butler has removed the percussion caps from their rifles. They cannot shoot back. They can only run forward into the guns. The fog clings to the marsh as the first wave steps off. Within seconds, Confederate artillery opens up. The sound splits the morning air. Shells tear through the ranks. Men disappear in clouds of smoke and dirt. They keep moving. The ground is a nightmare. Swamp water up to their knees. Fallen trees tangled together to slow them down. Sharpened wooden stakes driven into the earth to rip them apart. And above it all, the constant thunder of cannon fire. Word passes through the Confederate trenches. They see the color of the men charging toward them. The rifle fire doubles. Every man on that field knows what capture means. The Confederacy does not take black soldiers prisoner. They execute them. Some are shot on the spot. Others are returned to bondage. There is no surrender here. Only victory or death. The color bearer at the front takes a bullet. He falls. The flag drops toward the mud. Before it touches the ground, another man grabs it and keeps running. They are 600 yards from the Confederate works. 600 yards of open ground with no cover, no protection. Nothing but courage between them and the guns, and they do not stop. To understand what these men are charging into, you need to understand what white America believed about them. The year is 1864. The Civil War has raged for 3 years. President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, and since then, black men have been permitted to enlist in the Union Army. They serve in segregated units called the United States Colored Troops. White officers command them. The highest rank a black soldier can achieve is Sergeant Major. They are paid less than white soldiers. They receive inferior medical care, and most white commanders refuse to send them into real combat. The reason is simple. White America does not believe black men can fight. This is not opinion. This is policy. Military leaders argue that black soldiers lack the intelligence for complex battlefield maneuvers. They lack the discipline to hold formation under fire. They lack the courage to charge into artillery. These are not fringe beliefs. These are the assumptions that govern how the Union Army operates. Just 2 months earlier, at the Battle of the Crater in Petersburg, black troops had been thrown into a disaster. Poor leadership, a drunken commander, and a botched assault led to a slaughter. The northern press blamed the black soldiers. Newspapers questioned whether the entire experiment of arming black men had been a mistake. Skepticism spread through the Union officer corps like a disease. The Confederacy holds an even darker view. To them, black soldiers are not soldiers at all. They are property in rebellion. The Confederate Congress has declared that captured black troops will not be treated as prisoners of war. They will be executed or returned to bondage. Their white officers face the same fate for the crime of leading them. At New Market Heights, the Confederate defenders know exactly who is coming for them. The Texas Brigade holds these trenches. Veterans of Gettysburg, veterans of the wilderness. Men who have faced the best the Union has to offer and held their ground. When word spreads that black troops are forming for the assault, the reaction is immediate. One Confederate soldier later wrote that when they saw black men in the ranks, the word passed along the line to give them lead. Every man shot with as much precision as if they were at a shooting match. The defensive position is a fortress. 2 lines of abatis block the approach. These are felled trees with sharpened branches pointing outward, designed to tangle and slow any attacker. Behind the abatis, a line of palisades, sharpened wooden stakes driven into the earth. Behind the palisades, earthworks manned by veteran infantry. And behind the infantry, artillery batteries with clear lines of fire across the entire field. No troops have ever taken this position. White soldiers tried twice before at the first and second battles of Deep Bottom. Both times they were thrown back with heavy casualties. The killing ground is too open. The defense is too strong. The Confederate fire too accurate. And now Butler is sending black soldiers to do what white soldiers could not. Many in the Union Army expect a massacre. They expect the black troops to break and run the moment real artillery fire hits their lines. They expect panic. They expect failure. They expect confirmation of everything white America believes about black inferiority. But on this morning, 3,000 men are about to prove them all wrong. The first wave goes in at 5:30 a.m. Colonel Samuel Duncan leads the 4th and 6th United States Colored Troops into the fog. 700 men. They plunge down the slope and into the swamp. The Confederates hold their fire. They wait. They let the black soldiers wade through the marsh, struggle through the tangled brush, climb toward the first line of obstacles. And then they open up. The artillery hits first. Shells scream down from the heights and explode among the packed ranks. The sound is deafening. Men vanish in the blasts. Gaps appear in the formation where entire squads stood seconds before. They keep moving. The rifle fire comes next. The Texas Brigade rises from behind the earthworks and delivers a concentrated volley into the advancing line. Minié balls cut through the morning air. Officers fall. Sergeants fall. The color guard takes the worst of it. Sergeant Major Christian Fleetwood watches his color guard disintegrate around him. When the charge began, they numbered 12 men, 2 sergeants, 10 corporals. Within minutes, 11 of them are down. Most will never leave this field. Fleetwood later wrote in his diary that it was a deadly hailstorm of bullets, sweeping men down as hailstones sweep the leaves from trees. The men reach the first line of abatis. Fallen trees, sharpened branches. They have to climb through, over, around. Every second they spend tangled in the obstacles is another second under fire. Another volley, another round of casualties. Colonel Duncan takes a bullet, then another, then 2 more. 4 wounds. He goes down. Command passes to Colonel John Ames of the 6th. The assault has been underway for less than 20 minutes. The formation begins to break apart. Not from cowardice, from simple mathematics. Too many men falling, too much fire, too little cover. The survivors struggle through the abatis, but the Confederate volley fire is relentless. The advance stalls. After 40 minutes of carnage, the first wave falls back. Of the 700 men who charged, 350 are casualties. Half the force, gone. Any other army might have stopped there. The position is too strong, the casualties too severe, the failure too complete. General Charles Payne does not stop. He orders the second wave forward. At 7:30 a.m., Colonel Alonzo Draper leads the 5th, 36th, and 38th United States Colored Troops into the same killing ground, 1,300 men. They advance over the same swamp, through the same obstacles, past the bodies of their fallen brothers from the first assault. The Confederates reload and wait. This time, Draper changes the formation. Instead of a wide skirmish line, he compacts his men into assault columns. Narrower front, greater depth, harder to stop. They hit the abatis. The fire resumes. Men fall. Color-bearers go down. Officers are shot from their horses. For 30 brutal minutes, Draper's men are pinned in the swamp and the obstacles, trading fire with the entrenched Confederates. The casualties mount. The pressure is unbearable. Every instinct says to retreat, to fall back, to survive. And then something shifts. The men at the front begin to push, not backward, forward, through the abatis, through the palisades, up the slope toward the Confederate works. They are not stopping. They are not breaking. They are coming. In the chaos of the second assault, one man becomes a legend. Corporal Miles James of the 36th United States Colored Troops was born into bondage in Princess Anne County, Virginia. He spent the first 3 decades of his life as property. In 1863, he walked away from that life and enlisted in the Union Army at Fort Monroe. He was 34 years old. He had never held a weapon in combat. He had never charged an enemy position. He had never tested himself against the fire. Now he is running uphill into the guns of the Texas Brigade. The 36th is part of Draper's second wave. They have pushed through the swamp. They have torn through the abatis. They are closing on the Confederate works. The rifle fire is constant. Men are falling all around him. And then a bullet finds Miles James. It strikes his left arm. Not a graze, not a flesh wound. The bullet shatters bone, tears through muscle. His arm is destroyed, hanging useless at his side. The pain is beyond description. Any other soldier would fall back, would seek medical care, would accept that he had done enough. No one would question his courage. No one would doubt his commitment. He has charged into the teeth of Confederate artillery. He has earned the right to stop. Miles James does not stop. He looks at his mangled arm. He looks at the Confederate works 30 yards ahead. He looks at his brothers, still fighting, still falling, still pushing forward. And he makes a choice. The army surgeons reach him. There is no time for anesthesia, no time for a proper operating theatre. They amputate his arm right there on the battlefield, cut it off while the battle rages around them. While bullets crack overhead, while men scream and die within earshot. The amputation is complete. Miles James is missing his left arm. He has lost blood. He is in shock. He should be carried to the rear. He should be evacuated. He should be done. He picks up his rifle. With one arm he loads his weapon. With one arm he raises it to his shoulder. With one arm he fires into the Confederate line, and then he does it again and again, loading and shooting with a single hand while urging his men forward. 30 yards from the enemy works, close enough to see their faces, close enough to hear their voices, and Miles James keeps fighting. The men around him see this. They see a man who should be dead, a man who should be screaming in agony, a man whose body is broken but whose will is unbreakable. They see what courage looks like when it has no limits. His commanding officer, Colonel Alonzo Draper, will later write that Miles James was one of the bravest men he ever saw, that he was worth more with his single arm than half a dozen ordinary men. But in this moment, there are no words. There is only the image of a black man, born into bondage, standing 30 yards from the Confederate line with one arm gone and a rifle in his remaining hand. Still fighting, still leading, still refusing to quit. This is what unstoppable looks like. The Confederate line breaks. After 30 minutes of brutal fighting in the abatis, Draper's men surge forward one final time. They claw their way up the slope. They reach the earthworks, and they go over the top. Private James Gardner of the 36th is among the first to reach the parapet. A Confederate officer stands on the wall, rallying his men, screaming for them to hold the line. Gardner shoots him. Then he runs the man through with his bayonet. He is inside the enemy works before the body hits the ground. Sergeant Edward Ratcliffe follows. His commanding officer is dead. Every officer in his company is dead or wounded. Ratcliffe has assumed command. He leads his men over the wall and becomes the first enlisted man to stand inside the Confederate fortifications. The Texas Brigade veterans who mocked these soldiers, who passed the word to give them lead, who shot at them like targets at a shooting match, are now fighting hand to hand with black men who refuse to die. The Confederate position collapses. Unit by unit, the defenders abandon their trenches and fall back toward Richmond. New Market Heights, the position that turned back 2 previous Union assaults, the killing ground that white soldiers could not take, falls to the United States colored troops. By 8 a.m., the American flag flies over the captured works. The cost is staggering. Draper's brigade alone suffers 447 casualties out of 1,300 men, 1 in 3. Duncan's brigade from the first assault lost half its strength. Across the entire division, General Payne has lost 1 out of every 3 soldiers who stepped onto that field. The color guard of the 4th United States Colored Troops tells the story in miniature. 12 men carried the flags into battle. 11 of them fell. Only 1 walked off that field on his own feet. But the position is taken. The impossible is achieved. When General Benjamin Butler rides onto the battlefield after the fighting ends, he passes through a field of fallen black soldiers, 80 feet wide, 400 yards long. The dead and wounded of his colored troops lie scattered across the slope. He guides his horse carefully, stepping around the bodies, unwilling to let his mount trample what he calls the sacred dead. The survivors see their general approaching. They do not maintain formation. They break ranks and swarm around him. They grab the reins of his horse. They cheer. They weep. They have done what no one believed they could do. Butler will later write that as he looked at their bronzed faces upturned in the shining sun, he felt in his heart that the capacity of the black race for soldiers had then and there been fully settled forever. The strategic impact extends beyond this single hill. Fort Harrison, the key point in the Confederate defensive line, falls the same morning. The outer defenses of Richmond begin to crack. General Robert E. Fens. Lee himself orders a counterattack the following day to retake the lost positions. It fails. The black soldiers of the 22nd United States Colored Troops help hold Fort Harrison against Lee's assault. Richmond has never been closer to falling, and it nearly fell to black troops. One Confederate soldier will admit in writing that on September 29, Richmond came nearer to being captured, and that too by Negro troops, than it ever did during the whole war. The men they dismissed as property have just humiliated the Confederacy at the gates of its own capital. The Union Army does not know what to do with these men. They have just accomplished what white soldiers could not. They have captured a fortified position defended by Confederate veterans. They have suffered catastrophic casualties and kept fighting. They have proven every assumption about black inferiority to be a lie, and the system still refuses to fully acknowledge them. General Butler wants to promote Sergeant Major Christian Fleetwood to lieutenant, the man who saved the colors while his entire color guard was shot to pieces around him. The man who carried the flag through what he described as a deadly hailstorm of bullets. Fleetwood is educated. He is a leader. He has earned the commission. The War Department denies the request. Black men cannot be officers. Butler tries again with Sergeant Milton Holland of the 5th United States Colored Troops. Holland took command of his company after every officer was killed or wounded. He led them through the second assault and broke the Confederate line. Butler wants to make him a captain. The War Department refuses to issue the commission. White officers of the 4th United States Colored Troops organize a petition calling for Fleetwood to receive officer bars. They write that they would gladly welcome him as one of themselves. The petition goes nowhere. Promotions are blocked. But there is one avenue the War Department cannot close. One form of recognition that even they must acknowledge. The Medal of Honor. On the 6th of April, 1865, the War Department awards the Medal of Honor to 14 black soldiers for their actions at Newmarket Heights. 14. In a single battle, no other engagement in the entire Civil War produces this many black recipients. To put this in context, only 25 black soldiers will receive the Medal of Honor during the entire war. 14 of them earned it on this field in Virginia. The list includes Christian Fleetwood, Miles James, Powhatan Beatty, James Gardiner, Edward Ratcliffe, William Barnes, James Harris, men who seized fallen flags and carried them forward, men who took command when their officers fell, men who continued fighting after wounds that should have killed them. But the recognition extends beyond official medals. Even the Confederates cannot deny what they witnessed. J.D. Pickens of the Texas Brigade, the same unit that passed the word to give black soldiers lead, writes after the battle that, in his opinion, no troops up to that time had fought them with more bravery than those black soldiers. This is not praise from an ally. This is forced acknowledgement from an enemy who went into that fight believing black men could not stand against veteran troops. The Texas Brigade has faced the best the Union has to offer. They held at Gettysburg. They held in the Wilderness. And now they are admitting that black soldiers fought them as hard as any white regiment they ever faced. Thomas Morris Chester, a black war correspondent, writes that the colored troops who make up this division convince the most skeptical that black men will not only fight, but do it desperately. General Butler, who planned this assault specifically to prove that black soldiers could fight, writes with raw emotion about what he saw. He describes riding across the field after the battle, guiding his horse carefully, so as not to profane with his hoofs what seemed to him the sacred dead. He writes that if his tongue should ever cleave to the roof of his mouth, should he fail to defend the rights of men who have given their blood for him and his country and their race forever. The system tried to limit them, tried to deny them rank, tried to keep them from full recognition. But after Newmarket Heights, the argument is over. Black soldiers can fight, black soldiers will fight, and white America has run out of excuses. The men who survived Newmarket Heights do not stop at one battle. Miles James, the man who fought with one arm after a battlefield amputation, recovers at Fort Monroe. While recovering, he writes a letter to General Butler. The request is simple. He wants to remain in the army. He wants to keep fighting. His commanding officer supports the request. Colonel Draper writes that Miles James is one of the bravest men he ever saw, that James is worth more with his single arm than half a dozen ordinary men. Butler grants the request. Miles James returns to duty. He serves with the Regimental Provost Guard, and on the 3rd of April 1865, he marches with his company into Richmond, the Confederate capital, the city that sent armies to keep him in bondage. He enters it as a free man, as a soldier, as a Medal of Honor recipient. He is the only one of the 14 Medal of Honor recipients from Newmarket Heights who reaches the objective they fought for that September morning. Richmond falls, and Miles James is there to see it. Christian Fleetwood, the man who saved the colors while his color guard died around him, continues to serve until 1866. After leaving the military, he works for the War Department. He commands a battalion in the District of Columbia National Guard. In 1895, he writes his own account of black soldiers titled The Negro as a Soldier and presents it at the Cotton Exposition in Atlanta. He dies in 1914. His daughter donates his Medal of Honor to the Smithsonian Institution in 1948. Powhatan Beatty, who took command of his company after every officer fell, becomes a Shakespearean actor after the war. He performs across the nation to rave reviews. He also writes a play focused on the transition from bondage to freedom. In the early 21st century, a highway bridge near Richmond is named in his honor. Milton Holland, whom Butler tried to promote to captain and the War Department refused, founds the Alpha Insurance Company after the war, one of the nation's first black-owned insurance firms. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Robert Pinn returns to Stark County, Ohio, and opens a contracting business. Later he attends Oberlin College, studies law, is admitted to the bar, serves as a United States attorney. Men who were denied the right to learn to read before the war become lawyers, businessmen, military officers, and artists after it. The record they set at Newmarket Heights stands alone. 14 Medals of Honor in a single battle. More than half of all the Medals of Honor awarded to black soldiers during the entire Civil War came from this one field in Virginia. But the true legacy is not found in medals or monuments. It is found in what these men proved on the 29th of September 1864. They proved that courage is not determined by the color of a man's skin. They proved that the system that claimed they were inferior was built on a lie. They proved that when given the chance, black soldiers would not break, would not run, would not fail. The Confederacy built its entire ideology on the belief that black people were less than human, less capable, less intelligent, less brave. Newmarket Heights destroyed that lie with facts, with blood, with the image of Miles James fighting with one arm, with Christian Fleetwood carrying the colors through a hailstorm of bullets, with Powhatan Beatty leading men after every officer fell. These men did not just win a battle, they dismantled the logic of oppression itself. They showed that the only thing keeping black Americans from equality was not capability, not courage, not intelligence. It was simply the refusal of white America to see what was always there, until men like these made it impossible to ignore.